Don't check the second drawer. That's what she said. Not in a soft, sweet way. Not in a joking, flirty way. She said it like she'd rehearsed it. I had just opened it halfway. Just halfway. I wasn't even looking for anything specific. Just trying to find a spare charger because mine fried that morning and my phone was at 2%. But she walked in at the exact moment my hand touched that drawer, and her voice sliced through the air like a piano wire. Don't check the second drawer. My hand froze. I turned to look at her, confused. She was pale. Her arms stiff, like she wanted to rush across the room and slam it shut herself. But she didn't. She just stood there, frozen, waiting. So I backed away, closed it slowly. I even laughed awkwardly, like some idiot who doesn't know he's already dying. Okay, relax, I said. What's in there? State secrets. No, she said too quickly. Just old stuff. But later that night, I couldn't stop thinking about that drawer. It was like it was calling me. Every time I passed the bedroom, I could feel it behind the wood. Like it was alive. Like it was watching me. So at 2:41 a.m., I remember the time because I checked my phone 3 times before I moved. I got up. Quietly. She was asleep. Or pretending. I opened the drawer. Inside was a single envelope. Thick. Heavy. Wrapped in a hair tie she used to wear in college. And inside that envelope were 29 Polaroids. 29 pictures. None of them of me. Same guy in every one. Different hotel rooms. Different outfits. Same necklace. My necklace. She had borrowed it just for a night out with coworkers 3 weeks ago. I stood there holding that picture, heart vibrating, while she snored in the next room like nothing was wrong with the universe. Like gravity still worked. Like the moon was still up there, spinning quietly, instead of crashing through the ceiling and into my chest. The worst part? It wasn't even rage I felt. It was relief. Because now I knew. And the pretending could finally end. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the hallway with the envelope in my lap, the Polaroids spread out like tarot cards across the floor, lit by the dull blue of a dying phone screen. 29 photos, each with a timestamp scribbled in the corner. Sharpie. Rushed. Like she was cataloging her own betrayal in real time. Just in case she forgot the details later. Most of the shots were candid. Him on a bed. Him buttoning a shirt. Him looking out a hotel window. Only a few showed her, blurry reflections in mirrors, a hand on his chest. One photo where her eye accidentally caught the camera lens, wide and unfiltered. I kept staring at that one. Something about it didn't feel posed. It felt scared. Or maybe I just wanted it to. By 5 a.m., I had packed the photos back in the envelope and returned everything to the drawer exactly as it was. Every angle, every crease, every smudge. She'd know if I moved anything. I could feel it. She was the kind of person who remembered the exact rotation of a throw pillow, who once noticed I moved her succulents an inch to the left during cleaning. I crawled back into bed. She stirred slightly, sighed, and rolled toward me in her sleep. She draped her arm across my chest like it was just another Thursday morning. But all I could hear was the voice in my head whispering over and over again. Why did she keep the photos? Not on a phone. Not in the cloud. But physical. Tactile. Hidden, but not destroyed. That wasn't carelessness. That was something else. Later that day, I tried to act normal. She made coffee. I forced a smile. We talked about our neighbor's leaking roof like we were still a real couple. But something in me had shifted. I no longer listened to what she said. I studied how she said it. The pauses. The eye contact. The way she suddenly started blinking more when I asked where she'd be that evening. I've got a late call with the Minneapolis team, she said while buttering toast. Might run long. She doesn't work with anyone in Minneapolis. I only knew that because I used to help her rehearse client pitches back when we still felt like teammates. So I tested her. Oh, the Jefferson account. She froze for just half a second, then nodded. Yeah, that one. I smiled. Got it. There is no Jefferson account. That night, while she was on her supposed late call, I checked her car. I don't know what I expected. Receipts? A second phone? DNA evidence? What I didn't expect was the notebook. Wedged under the passenger seat was a small, leather-bound journal. Unlabeled. No lock. Just a single, ivory ribbon to mark the pages. I hesitated, then opened it. Most pages were blank. But one, maybe 20 pages in, had a single sentence written in red ink. Don't say his name out loud. That's it. No context. No explanation. But here's the thing. The handwriting wasn't hers. I've seen her handwriting 1,000 times. On birthday cards, sticky notes, grocery lists. This was sharper, masculine, almost angry in its strokes. Someone else had written it, and she kept it. I put the notebook back, heart in my throat. I stepped away from the car, walked back inside, and sat in the kitchen alone for almost an hour, watching the candle flicker on the counter. The same one from before. The one that started everything. Only now I noticed something I hadn't before. Scratched into the bottom of the glass jar, so faint you could only see it when the light hit just right, were two initials. J.M. I don't know anyone in her life with those initials. At least, I didn't think I did. But apparently, I've been wrong about a lot lately. I was never the kind of man who believed in signs. I don't carry crystals in my pockets. I don't check horoscopes. I believe in numbers, spreadsheets, logic, the kind of thinking that fits nicely into boxes. But lately, the world had stopped following rules. Everything that used to be linear was now bending in on itself like some kind of cruel spiral, and I couldn't keep pretending I was just being paranoid. The initials J.M. haunted me all weekend. I saw them everywhere. On coffee cups, on a trash bin outside the gym, even carved into a park bench. Probably initials from some teenage couple, but now everything felt like a clue. Like the universe was mocking me with breadcrumbs. I couldn't ask her outright. Not yet. She'd spin it. Cry maybe. Gaslight me with phrases like, "You've always had a jealous streak," or "You're imagining things again." That's the thing about Nadine. She never fought directly. She'd win by making you doubt your own thoughts until you apologized for having them. So instead, I waited until Monday morning. She left for her early strategy meeting, wearing lipstick she hadn't touched in months and heels she used to complain hurt her arches. I gave her a kiss on the cheek and wished her luck. She smiled, and I watched her drive off, heart pounding like I'd just sent a spy into enemy territory. Once she was gone, I didn't go to work. I drove to the edge of town, where cell signals die and old payphones still stand like forgotten relics. There's one outside an abandoned diner. I used to go there in college when I needed to think. I parked far enough not to be seen, stepped into the booth, and dialed the number I wasn't supposed to remember. It belonged to my friend Halden, a guy I hadn't spoken to in years, not since the fallout. He works for a property management company, and back when we were still close, he had access to private databases, addresses, tenant lists, key fob histories, all the stuff normal people never think twice about. He didn't ask why I was calling from a payphone. He didn't even ask how I'd gotten his new number. All I said was, "I need to know who lives in apartment 3B at 122 North Leiden." There was a pause. Then he said, "You sure?" "Dead sure. I'll text you in 10. He hung up. I waited in the car, hands shaking. My mind ran wild with theories. What if it was a woman she was meeting? What if it was her therapist? What if it was no one, and I'd just imagined the whole thing? Invented a villain because I was too boring to be cheated on. Then my phone buzzed. Name, Julian M. Renner. Lease signed 7 months ago. One guest key fob issued under. In Willoughby. In Willoughby. Nadine's maiden name. She used it for doctor's appointments and junk mail. I hadn't seen her actually write it in years. Something in my chest cracked open. It was real. She had access. She had a key. I didn't think. I just drove. Straight across town, ignoring red lights and common sense. I parked across from the building, a glass and brick cube of modern minimalism, the kind of place with underground parking and lobby espresso bars. Way fancier than what Julian's salary probably allowed, unless he had something, or someone, supplementing it. I didn't have a plan, just adrenaline. And fury. I buzzed up. No answer. Then I saw a woman leaving the building and caught the door with a polite smile like I belonged. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor. 3B was at the far end of the hall, next to a tall ficus and a broken wall sconce. The air smelled like lavender and metal. I raised my hand to knock, but the door opened before I touched it. And there he was. Same guy from the photos. A little taller than I expected. Unshaven. Barefoot. Holding a steaming mug with a cracked "Best Dog Dad" logo. He froze. So did I. Neither of us spoke for a solid 10 seconds. Then he said, "You're Elwood, aren't you?" He said my name like it tasted bad. I felt my mouth go dry. "How do you know that?" He sighed and stepped back. "You better come in." I don't know why I did. I should have turned and run or screamed or punched him. But I followed him inside like I was sleepwalking. And the second the door closed behind me, I saw it. On the kitchen counter. The candle. That same exact candle. Julian didn't sit. He paced. I stood frozen near the door, staring at the candle on the counter like it was some cursed artifact. It was the same scent, that odd blend of smoke, citrus, and something unplaceable, like the memory of a man I'd never met. There were two of them. One half-burned, the other brand new. Both tucked neatly into glass jars marked with a tiny black sticker that read, Batch 12. My wife had brought that same candle into our home. Twice now. Look, man, Julian finally said, running a hand through his hair like he was trying to claw thoughts out of his scalp. This is not how I wanted this to go. I told her it was only a matter of time before it blew up. You know my name, I said, my voice flat and foreign. That means she told you about me. He didn't answer right away. He moved to the window, pulled the curtain slightly to one side, then let it drop again like he was making sure no one followed me. Then he turned and looked me dead in the eyes. She told me everything, Elwood. I didn't know what to say. Rage felt like the wrong reaction now. Something else had crept into the room with us. Something worse than anger. Curiosity. I needed to know what everything meant. Because if she told him everything, the man she snuck around with, that meant she chose to leave pieces of herself out when she was with me. Like what? I finally asked. What does everything mean to her? He took a deep breath, walked over to the fridge, pulled out 2 beers, and tossed me one. I didn't catch it. It hit the floor with a thunk and rolled under a chair. Neither of us moved to pick it up. She told me about the miscarriage, he said. The room shrank. She told me how you couldn't even look at her for a week after it happened. How you blamed her without saying it out loud. How you only touched her out of guilt. She told me about the silence, the way you'd go days without asking if she was okay. I swallowed, but my throat was dry. My tongue felt thick. That part of our life, that one awful, imploding year, had been buried so deep I forgot it still had roots. She told me you love rules more than people, he added. That part actually made me flinch. She said you keep your socks in color order, that you rotate your cereal boxes based on expiration date, that you keep a ledger, a literal spreadsheet, of every time she made a mistake and pretend you're not keeping score. That's not true, I said, finally snapping. Isn't it? He asked, but not with cruelty. Just pity. I was hurting too, I whispered. I know, he said softer now. But you turned your pain into a checklist. She needed a person. You became an audit. I hated him. I hated how calm he was. How he stood there in his stupid socks on his stupid polished floor in his stupid apartment, filled with secondhand pieces of my wife. But the worst part was knowing that nothing he said was technically wrong. Just incomplete. She still married me, I muttered. Yeah, Julian nodded. She did. Because she thought she owed you a future. The silence that followed was unbearable. A static pressure behind my ears. I wanted to scream. Throw something. Shatter one of those cursed candles, and watch the wax ruin his designer rug. Instead, I asked, are you in love with her? He didn't answer. So I asked again louder. Are you in love with her? Yes, he said. Quiet. Confident. But she's not in love with either of us. That hit like a punch I didn't see coming. He walked over to a small cabinet near the TV and pulled out a worn manila folder. Handed it to me like he was delivering lab results. What is this? I asked, not taking it. You're not the only one she's lied to, he said. And if you really want the full picture, open it. I opened the folder. And inside were 3 names. None of them were mine. None of them were Julian's. But all 3 had the same date scribbled next to them. The same week Nadine told me she was visiting her mother out in Coeur d'Alene. A week when, apparently, she was seeing other men, too. I took the folder home like it might bite me if I held it too tight. Julian hadn't said another word after I saw the names. Just nodded once and shut the door behind me like we'd made some kind of unspoken agreement. I didn't know what it was yet, but it felt like stepping into a tunnel with no lights behind me and no promise of anything ahead. Back at home, I waited until Nadine fell asleep to open the folder again. Her routine hadn't changed, still brushing her teeth with the bathroom door half open, still moisturizing in slow circles like she was performing for some invisible audience. Still kissing my forehead with exactly the same amount of pressure as always, like it had been pre-measured. You'd never know anything was wrong. That's what scared me most. I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope under a dish towel, my laptop open, pretending to pay bills. But I wasn't pretending for her anymore. I was pretending for myself. Pretending I still had some control over where this all was going. The names in the folder were Matthew C. Levins, age 44, freelance photographer, Chicago. Derek Salter, 31, nutritionist, Portland. Ralph D. Linney, 38, HVAC contractor, Eugene. 3 men, 3 cities, 1 week. Julian said she wasn't in love with either of us. What he didn't say, what I now realized, was that she might not be looking for love at all. I searched each name. Slowly, carefully. My fingers trembled. I didn't know what I was hoping to find. Arrest records? Obituaries? Maybe nothing at all, so I could convince myself Julian had lied. But no, there they were. Real people. Not one of them had a spouse listed publicly. Not one of them had posted anything on social media within the last year. Their online lives were eerily quiet, like someone had muted them. I found an old Yelp review Matthew had written about a Thai place in Wicker Park. 5 stars. Said the mango sticky rice reminded him of childhood. That was 5 years ago. Derek had an abandoned Instagram page. Mostly meal prep photos, gym selfies, the usual. His last post was 11 months ago. A blurry sunset with the caption, "Getting better." Ralph didn't exist online at all. But I found a business card image on a forum from 2019. Same name, same age, same city. I couldn't shake the feeling that these men weren't just flings. They weren't mistakes. They were steps in some larger pattern, like I'd stumbled into the middle of a blueprint without a legend. Then I remembered something. Last year, Nadine had left her phone unlocked during a brunch with friends. I had borrowed it to check the time and noticed she had 2 voicemail apps. One standard, one called Whisperbox. I asked her about it later, just offhandedly, curious, and she shrugged. Oh, that's just for transcriptions. Work stuff. But now I had questions. I snuck into the bedroom while she slept, lifted her phone off the nightstand, and tiptoed back to the kitchen like a thief in his own house. Face ID failed. Thank God she still used a backup passcode. And I still remembered her niece's birthday, 0813. The app was still installed, buried inside a folder labeled Utilities. I opened it. She'd recently cleared most of her inbox. Only 4 messages remained. The most recent one was from an unknown number, dated 6 days ago. No transcript. Just a single audio file titled, "Don't." I played it. For the first 2 seconds, there was only static. Then a man's voice, hoarse, shaky, like he was trying to keep from crying, whispered, "I did what you asked. I haven't told anyone. Please, I don't want any more trouble. I still don't know why you needed the photos. You said no one would get hurt." Click. That was it. No goodbye, no name. Just panic, confusion, and a silence so loaded it made the hairs on my arms stand up. Photos. He said photos. And that's when I realized something horrifying. The Polaroids I found in the drawer, the ones of Julian, the ones I assumed she took herself, they weren't selfies. They were taken from odd angles. Some from high above, others across the room, some through reflections. She wasn't taking them. Someone else was. Which means at least one of these men, maybe more, were being used, manipulated, possibly blackmailed. And I had no idea how deep this went. Because for all my digging, all my theories and folders and secondhand stories, I still didn't know the one thing that mattered most. What does Nadine actually want? I didn't sleep that night. Again. But this time it wasn't from grief or fury or even shock. It was something new, a quiet, acidic fear. Like the ground had started to tilt under my feet and no one else noticed. Nadine slept beside me, wrapped in blankets like an afterthought, her breath steady, calm, as if her world was exactly where she left it. I stared at the ceiling and wondered if mine had ever even existed. The message from the Whisperbox app looped in my head like a skipping record. You said no one would get hurt. There were too many possibilities, and each of them led to something darker than the last. The next morning, Nadine left for yoga. That's what she called it anyway. She took a mat, wore leggings, tied her hair up, and gave me a kiss like always. But I watched her car turn left instead of right at the intersection, and I knew, without proof, without question, that she hadn't gone to yoga in months. As soon as she was gone, I opened her closet. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I needed something real. Something she hadn't curated or staged. A piece of the truth that still had fingerprints on it. Behind a row of old coats, shoved down behind a stack of shoeboxes, I found a small red case. Not locked, just zipped. I hesitated before opening it, like part of me still hoped I'd find something harmless. Childhood letters. Photos from college. A weird old diary with glitter pens and Lisa Frank stickers. What I found instead was a bundle of business cards, each one from a different city, different names. Some were doctors, some were personal trainers. One was a grief counselor, but they all had something in common. Notes scribbled on the back in Nadine's sharp, efficient handwriting. Just fragments. Lives alone. Owns a boat. Mother died 2019. Doesn't talk about it. Says he's afraid of elevators. Possible in. Will send photos Monday. I sat there on the floor of my bedroom. The woman I married now reduced to notes like she was planning a heist. Or worse, a play. Like she cast people into roles they didn't even know they were auditioning for. And then discarded them. One card stood out. It was the only one that had a woman's name. Margaret Llewellyn. Art curator. Albany. On the back, too smart. Sloppy loose end. A chill ran down my spine. I looked her up immediately. Found an address on a gallery website. No phone number, no social presence, just an outdated press release and a blurry headshot. She had kind eyes. The kind that looked like they once trusted too easily. I got in my car and drove the 2 hours to Albany without thinking twice. I didn't call, didn't email. I just showed up and told myself I'd figure it out when I got there. When I finally reached the gallery, it was closed for renovations. The windows were taped with brown paper, but I knocked anyway. No answer. I was about to leave when I saw someone inside. A woman, maybe late 40s, with thick silver hair pulled into a loose braid. She didn't flinch when she saw me. She just came to the door, unlocked it, and opened it 2 inches. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Are you Margaret?" A pause. She nodded, slowly. "Yes." I took a breath. "I think you knew someone named Nadine Willoughby. Or maybe Nadine Kessler. Or, she might have used another name. I'm her husband." I swallowed. "I found your card." Her face didn't change. No shock. No confusion. Just a kind of resignation, like she'd been waiting for this day and wasn't sure if she was relieved or terrified it had come. She opened the door wider. "You should come in." The gallery smelled like dust and dried paint. Old canvases were leaned against the walls like forgotten secrets. Margaret offered me tea. I declined. My throat was too dry to drink. "She used the name Ria when I knew her," Margaret said, sitting across from me on a cracked leather couch. "Said she was a freelance photographer writing a book on loss." I blinked. Loss? She told me she lost her sister in a car accident. Said she was trying to understand how grief changed people. She wanted to photograph objects people associated with pain. Asked if I'd show her a painting my husband made before he died. I didn't respond. "She stayed with me for 3 nights, Margaret continued. "We talked. Ate dinner. I cried in front of her." "What did she take?" I asked. Margaret looked at me like she pitied me. Like I was a fool who didn't yet know the rules of the game I'd been thrown into. "She didn't take anything physical," she said. "But when she left, I found a USB drive in my drawer. It had recordings. Of our conversations. Of me talking about my husband. Of things I didn't even remember saying." I felt like I might vomit. "Did you confront her?" Margaret smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "No. I deleted the files. Changed my locks. And then I waited. Because I figured someone else, someone like you, would show up eventually." I sat in silence. The air between us was heavy. Finally, she stood, walked to a drawer, and pulled out an envelope. She left this behind. I was going to burn it. But something told me not to. Inside was a photograph. Not of Margaret. Not of me. It was a photo of Nadine, standing in front of a mirror. But behind her, reflected in the glass, was a wall covered in photos. Different men. Different women. Strings between them. And at the center, in red marker, my name. Elwood. I drove home from Albany with the photograph on the passenger seat, weighted down by my phone like I was afraid it might fly away and ruin me forever. My hands didn't feel like mine. The steering wheel blurred. At one point I missed an exit and didn't even realize it until I was 30 minutes off course. I kept seeing the photo in my head, not Nadine, but the wall behind her. The faces, the lines, the names. My name, right in the center, circled in red like a target. It wasn't the kind of photo you show someone to explain something. It was the kind you send when you want them to know they've been watched. The thing is, I don't even know who took that picture. Was it a selfie? Was it someone else behind the camera? Why did she leave it with Margaret? Was it a mistake? Or was it bait? By the time I made it home, the house felt too quiet, like the silence was trying to protect itself. I went straight to the garage, locked the door behind me, and laid the photo out under my workbench light. I stared at every inch, scanned every object in the room, until something caught my eye in the lower right corner. A box. It looked familiar. Just a plain gray plastic storage bin, but I recognized the dent on the side and the black tape wrapped around one corner. It was mine, or at least it used to be. I kept my old college notebooks in it, back when we moved into this house. I hadn't seen it in years. But in the photo, it wasn't in our garage. The walls were wrong. There were exposed beams and water stains on the cement floor. It looked like a basement. We don't have a basement, which means Nadine took it somewhere. Or someone else did. The next day, I took a PTO day from work. Told Nadine I was helping my brother replace drywall. She didn't question it, just gave a distracted, "Drive safe," as she slipped her laptop into a bag I hadn't seen before. It wasn't her usual work tote. This one was bulkier, black leather, with a zippered front pouch. After she left, I went through our storage like a man possessed. I pulled out every bin, every old suitcase, every box marked winter coats or Christmas stuff. Hours passed. Dust coated my arms, my hair, my face. I found the gray bin eventually, tucked behind a broken fan and 3 flat bike tires. But it wasn't empty notebooks anymore. Inside was a small black velvet pouch. And inside the pouch, a key. Not a house key, not a car key. A small, brushed steel cylinder with a number etched into the side, 47B. It didn't match anything I owned. Not my gym locker, not our safe, not our mailbox. But I knew what it felt like, a storage unit key. I checked her credit card history on our shared account. Nothing. But I remembered she opened a new card last year for points, and when I asked for a copy of the login, she acted like I was being ridiculous. "Why do you care?" she said. "We barely spend anything on it." But I'd seen the card once, peeking out of her wallet during a dinner party. Send a Federal. I signed up for an online portal under her name. Password hint. Hometown pet. Easy. Her dog growing up was named Chuo. Second try, I was in. She had made 7 payments to a company called Red Rose Storage. All identical. All monthly. The most recent one cleared just 2 days ago. Location, 2171W, Dunstable. I looked it up, barely 20 minutes from our house. Hidden behind a strip mall and a boarded-up Thai place we used to order from during lockdown. I drove out there immediately. No plan. Just the key in a half-dead phone and a pulse in my neck that felt like a war drum. When I arrived, the lot was mostly empty. A rusted gate, a keypad, and rows of corrugated doors that looked like they hadn't been opened in decades. But Unit 47B was near the back. I parked 2 rows away, got out slowly, looked around. No cameras that I could see. No office. No people. I inserted the key. It turned smoothly. The door rolled up with a metallic groan, like the place itself didn't want me to see what was inside. At first glance, the unit was practically empty. 1 wooden shelf, 1 folding chair, 1 blue duffel bag, and a massive corkboard propped against the wall. I stepped inside. The corkboard was the first thing I checked, but it was blank. The pins were there, dozens of them, but all the strings had been removed. All the photos gone. Wiped clean like someone cleared the crime scene, but left the bones behind. I turned to the duffel bag. Inside were, for prepaid phones, a burner laptop, a folder with multiple driver's licenses, all with Nadine's face, all with different names, a stack of SIM cards, a paper envelope with a handwritten note taped to it. It said, "If Elwood finds this, you were too slow." The envelope was sealed and heavy. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a USB drive and a photograph. This time, it was just me, taken through our living room window. No date, no message, just me, sitting on the couch, alone, reading a book. And in the reflection of the glass, standing outside in the dark, was Nadine, holding a phone and smiling. I didn't open the USB right away. I sat in my car for over an hour outside that storage unit, gripping the flash drive like it might detonate if I moved wrong. The photo, me in the window, Nadine smiling in the reflection, lay on the passenger seat like a dare. The air in the car was stale, the kind that only happens when you've been holding your breath for too long and don't even realize it. For weeks, I'd been chasing answers, names, places, files, whispers. A web of secrets that twisted itself around my life like ivy through brick. But now that the truth was physically in my hands, A part of me was terrified to plug it in. What if it confirmed everything? What if it was worse than I imagined? What if it unraveled me completely? But another part, a louder, smaller, braver voice, told me, no matter what was on that drive, it was already happening. Whether I watched it or not, the truth was the truth. I took it home. Nadine was still gone. I didn't know where she was, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't care. I didn't search the house. I didn't open drawers. I didn't check her location history or read her emails. I made a cup of coffee, turned on the living room lamp, and opened my old laptop, the one that never connects to the internet anymore, the one I used to write in during quiet mornings when we still had quiet mornings. I plugged in the USB. There was only one file. For Elwood. MP4-inch. I hesitated, then clicked. It wasn't surveillance. It wasn't a trap. It wasn't even a confession. It was a video of Nadine. She was sitting in what looked like a hotel room. The same candle sat on the dresser behind her, flickering gently. Her face was bare, no makeup, no performance, just her, like I hadn't seen in years. And when she spoke, her voice didn't sound like the woman who lied or planned or manipulated. She sounded like the girl I met in a laundromat 12 years ago. If you're watching this, then I guess I misjudged how far you'd go. I thought maybe you'd find some things, but not everything. Not this. Not me. You always wanted the truth in neat lines. In numbers. In things that can be categorized. But I've never fit in a spreadsheet, Elwood. You weren't supposed to be a target. I swear to God, you weren't. You were supposed to be safe. You were my safe thing. And then I started disappearing from myself, and I didn't know how to stop. So I kept creating stories. Characters. Faces. I didn't know how else to feel anything. You didn't break me. I was broken when I met you. I loved you, in the only way I knew how. But I don't deserve to be in your life anymore. I'm done hiding. I'm done hurting people. I'm leaving the country. Not running. Just leaving. The storage unit is yours now. Everything I've done, every lie, every identity, it ends here. Let it rot. Or burn it. But please, don't chase me anymore. You were the only thing that ever felt real. I hope one day, you're able to live like none of this happened. I hope you find peace. The screen faded to black. I sat there long after the video ended. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I just let myself feel something I hadn't let in for months. Stillness. A week later, I went back to the storage unit. I tossed everything into a fire pit. The burner phones, the licenses, the SIM cards, the corkboard, the duffel. Every object she'd used to become someone else. I let it all go. I kept the photo of myself. The one through the window. Not because I liked how I looked. I didn't. But because it reminded me that even when I was being watched, when everything felt fake, I was still real. I had always been real. And now, I finally had my life back. 6 months passed. I adopted a dog. Her name is Clover. She's missing one ear and hates rainstorms, but loves jazz music and sour cream. I quit my job and started teaching financial literacy at a local community center. I stopped rotating my cereal boxes. I stopped pretending I needed answers to questions that no longer mattered. I never heard from Nadine again. And I think that's okay. Because sometimes, the people we love don't break us. They reveal us. They show us where we end, and where we haven't even begun yet.